On behalf of the Pan American Badminton Confederation, we'd like to warmly welcome you to our Coach Corner program. My name is Richard Wong, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator today. Today, it is an honor to welcome a distinguished member of the Badminton World Federation and a cherished friend of Badminton Pan Am, Fern Gilders. Before handing over the floor to her, allow me to share a little bit about her impressive journey. In 2008, she landed her first job in badminton tournaments. This led to work on 2 European Championships, 2009 and 2010, 1 World Championship in 2012, and the London 2012 Olympic Games and the Glasgow 2014 Commonwealth Games. She was the badminton competition director for the first European Games in Baku 2015. She moved to Tokyo in 2020 to take up position at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games. She is a badminton competition director for the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. We welcome Fern to Coach Corner and thank her for joining us from her home in Kuala Lumpur. Let's carry on with her presentation.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me today on Badminton Pan Am's Coach Corner programme. Very excited to be talking to you about lessons that I have learnt from delivering an Olympic and Paralympic Games. My name is Fern Gilders. I am the Head of Tournament Development at the Badminton World Federation. And I'm hoping that what you'll get from this session are a couple of things that I learned from delivering an Olympic Games and Paralympic Games that were slightly different to a usual Olympic and Paralympic Games, in that we had COVID to deal with. And I know that many of you, I'm sure, who are joining today have had experience of delivering events during COVID, and you know what it was like. Yes, I thought I would talk to you today about some of the different things that I learned from this particular event, and hopefully there will be some lessons that you can take away with you from it as you are coming in to plan with your own tournaments. So I am recording this session, so hopefully as I record, if there are any glitches with technology or I disappear or anything, then just bear with me as I get the PowerPoint up and running. So I am hoping that by the end of this session, and you may already know some of this from your own work, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to actually articulate why you run your events or your tournaments. I'm sure that many of you run lots of different tournaments, lots of different events at different levels, be it local, be it regional, be it for juniors, for seniors. But do you actually stop and think about why you run those events? And again, some of you may already do this, but you should be starting to identify who are your key partners within your event structure, and how might they differ for different levels of event or tournament. The next one sounds really silly and very straightforward perhaps, but do you know why you would plan, and why is planning important? Maybe not something that you've really thought about in a huge amount of detail before, but I think that it's important to know why you plan. Can you overplan? Can you underplan? What do you do when things don't go to plan? So I'm hoping you'll be able to define why you plan, and then just from my side, I think what are some of the mini lessons that are true across all different events, no matter what level it is that you are running, because whilst there are some differences between a local tournament to a major multi-sport event, actually the principles of event planning are fairly similar. So hopefully by the time I finish talking, that is what you will be able to do and define. So I thought I'd share a little bit about me before I go into those lessons. So who am I and why am I talking to you about this topic today? So I mean, I would start by saying that I am a sports enthusiast. I have played sports since a very young age. It's always been a very, very big part of my life, and I truly believe in the power of sports for greater good. I think it has so many benefits for people to for people who participate in sport. There are so many benefits. So I am a sports enthusiast, not just badminton, but across the board. Obviously, badminton is my favorite sport and the one that I know the most about. I was a volunteer before I started in the world of work. So I think from the age of maybe 14, 15, I was volunteering at badminton tournaments, badminton events, in different roles, whether it be on the desk, and at that point in time, filling in Excel spreadsheets with results and calculating things, or recording scores. But I was volunteering before I went into the world of work. And would also say that it got a lot of value from doing that. You meet an awful lot of people by doing it too, and that's always positive. I have a degree. My degree is in sports development. Actually, if I look back now, I think maybe I'd have done a degree in event management if I'd have had the opportunity. But when I was at university, that degree did not exist. So sports development is my background. Actually, one of the modules that I remember the most from that degree was event related. So we, as part of the course, had to design our own event, I got a lot out of doing that. Got a lot out of doing that too. When I finished university, I was very, very lucky in the fact that I got a job working at Badminton England in their events department. Actually, it was only supposed to be 9 months, and I did my first event there, and I absolutely loved it, and I ended up staying, and was very, very lucky with that. I not only worked in their events team, and I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about some of the events that I did, but I actually also worked in the development department. Again, a lot of it was around events and schools-related events, but I have an events and development background. And hopefully those of you that have met me before, if you were at the Para Badminton workshop back in November, will see that I try very hard to connect the events and the development side of things. I think the two go hand in hand, so both are very, very important. I actually have a background also in education. So I was a primary school teacher for a very short amount of time, maybe 4 or 5 years, enjoyed that. I always say that teaching is like events, except that you have 30 children to control in a classroom and you never know what they're going to do. And that is like events. So you plan, you deliver a lesson, and then you evaluate. So that was my teaching part. And then I've been very, very lucky in that throughout my career, I've done a number actually of multi-sport games as part of the local organising committee. So I was involved in London 2012. I did Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. I was in Baku for a European Games, Tokyo 2020, Olympic and Paralympic Games. And then most recently was Birmingham 2022, Commonwealth Games again, all within badminton. And I guess as I progressed through my career in the role as competition manager. And then I actually did a brief stint in football, women's football, which I enjoyed, and then was lucky enough to get the position that I'm in currently at BWF. So that's just a little bit about the person that is talking to you, so you know some more about my background. In terms of my tournament experience, I just wanted to touch on this because I'm going to go into more detail around a multi-sport event. But I have worked at all levels of tournaments, and actually, I love all level of tournament. There's something very, very exciting about working at an event. So I've done development level tournaments. We used to run at Badminton England a very, very big bonanza. It was 29 courts, from under 13s, under 15s, under 17s, all the way up to, I think we went all the way up to over 60s, all in one venue, all under one roof, over 2 days. And I mean, it was a fantastic competition. I've done schools tournaments, that's from like local level all the way up to a national schools competition. I've worked with universities on their tournaments, and I've done social tournaments as well. A long time ago, I ran the county competition, which I think would be the equivalent of different regions within your continent. National tournaments, whether that be juniors, seniors, or at masters level. I've had a go at least at running all of those, and know the different challenges that you have from working with those different age groups. All a lot of fun. And then, as I said before, very lucky in that I've done continental championships. So I've done European individuals, European team. I did the first European Games, and I've done a World Championships back in 2011, a long time ago now. So yeah, I have a broad spectrum of event experience. And then, yes, as I touched on before, Commonwealth Games for me with Glasgow and Birmingham 2022. And then in terms of Olympic and Paralympic Games, I've been very, very lucky in different capacities to have been a part of London 2012, again, a long time ago now, Tokyo 2020. And my role at Tokyo was technical operations manager for both badminton and para-badminton. And then, I mean, I've listed Paris, and whilst I was not involved in the actual tournament delivery, it was interesting to see Paris from an international federation's perspective, because that was something that was fairly new for me. Okay, my next slide. So why do I love events? Because I do. I could talk about events a lot, but I really think that there is so much that people, that cities, that local communities can get out of hosting events. There are many different things that you can get out of it. So I've tried to list a few here for you. So in terms of the first one, you've got your social elements. So events are a great opportunity to engage with the local community. They promote healthy lifestyle, depending upon, I mean, they all promote healthy lifestyle, but some, I suppose, more than others. Depending on the level of athlete that's engaged and that's involved with it. Events are an opportunity to network. So you meet so many different people through being at an event, whether that be as a volunteer, as a technical official. You just have the opportunity to interact with so many different people from all different walks of life. And I mean, from a mental health and well-being perspective, to be a part of that, whether it be playing, whether it be volunteering, whatever the role is, there are huge social benefits from being a part of an event. I mean, I also just will add that as underneath the social, there is a part of like a passion for sport. So I think it's an opportunity for people who are passionate about sports to be a part of something that's bigger. So it's about all of these different people coming together from a lot of different places to make an event happen. And that could be, I've talked there on a large scale, but it's local community as well. Because if you get local community involved in some of your more local tournaments, the benefits for the community are huge. So the social bit is one part for me that is one reason why I love events. Athlete development, I think you will probably all know this, but events on different levels of the athlete pathway, also very important. They can be used to identify talents for different athletes that are participating, depending upon their level. So good to pull in your coaches who can come and they can watch and they can say, oh, this player is looking strong, looking good, but they need to work on this. Events are a really, really good opportunity to benchmark yourself as an athlete. Pointing to myself, but I'm definitely not a high level athlete. But even as a social player, I can benchmark myself against other people if I'm playing as part of a tournament, be that social, be that competitive, be that badminton for life. So that's really, really important. And then, as I said, it's competition is an important part of the player pathway. So having opportunities to compete along your player journey at the right level for you, so that you're motivated enough to keep going, to keep training, but also to keep participating. I think events are a wonderful way to do that, depending upon the type of events that you're choosing to run. In terms of economy, they're a way to generate revenue, depending upon how you do it, but a way to generate revenue. If you charge spectators to come and watch, you have entry fees. And then, if you go for a bigger event, then obviously through sponsorship, advertising, etc. But even at a smaller level, local tournaments, they are a way to generate income and revenue. Tourism. Maybe this is a bit more from a larger event perspective, but actually, if you have an event and it is well publicized and people have a reason to come and watch, they will book hotel rooms, they will stay, and the area will be regenerated by people coming to do that. So that is a benefit of events. And then they're also an opportunity for you to promote your brand. So your brand related to a school's event, your brand related to a junior event, etc. So you can sell yourself as a part of this event. I think that's really, really important. Events are incredibly entertaining. One of my favorite bits about an event is the bit where everybody's lined up back of house waiting to go on court, and perhaps the music is starting, everybody's a little bit nervous, and then there are lights and everything, and the athletes will walk out onto court for the first time. You can do that at any level of event. I think that's important to say. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what level of tournament. You can always have a think about what are you going to do to make this entertaining for anybody who's coming into that sports hall or outdoors now for air badminton. Anybody that is coming, how will they be entertained? Through the sport and through the wraparound package, and from that building a fan base, and some of the content that's then put out off the back of the event, to ultimately raise the profile of the sport. The sport in itself, for me, it's a beautiful. Badminton is a beautiful sport. It's athletic, it's powerful, it's fast, there's skill, there's tactics. I think it's brilliant. And through events are the way that you then tell that story of the sport. So that's the entertainment side. From a strategic or political perspective, actually, there's a lot of national or local pride from attending an event. You're representing whoever it may be. You're representing your region, you're representing your school, you're representing your member association. Actually, to do that, I think at whatever age and in whatever capacity, is something that you can be proud of, or as an athlete, as a player, whatever it may be, you can be very proud of that. And I think that's important, and it's nice to see. A good example, team relay, doing the team cheer. Also, adds to the team element and people coming together and working together. Then, I mean, for some of the bigger multi-sport events, the infrastructure that comes from hosting a larger event. I mean, cities will bid on cities will bid to host on the basis that as part of that, an area will be regenerated. It might be a better transport system is coming. It could be that, I don't know, hotels are going to be built, or an athletes' village is going to be built that would then be converted into housing in future. So there are many, many different angles there. And then the education piece and the inspiration piece about events. I think I've touched on it throughout this section, but there's such an opportunity to inspire the next generation of player, of fan, of technical official, of volunteer, of event organizer. And events, they really are the hub for everything else then that can happen around our sport. They're a wonderful, wonderful thing. I mean, teamwork is the last bit that I've listed there, because they are a team effort. No one person can lead an event, but one person can't put an event on by themselves. And that team element and that being a part of something that is bigger for the athletes, I mean, I think it's an amazing feeling, and I think that was the bit that got me hooked, was alongside the sport, that extra wraparound stuff that you can do with events. So hopefully what you've learned from that first bit is that I am very, very passionate about the events topic. I think I would, as I said, I would talk to anybody about why you would host events. Okay, so my next slide. This is me. This is me in Tokyo, and now I'm going into a little bit more detail actually about my experience working on Tokyo 2020. So for, I guess, a little bit of history or context, I moved out to Tokyo in February 2020. And I was in the office there for probably about 6 weeks with the planning. I was brought over there by BWF at the time, not employed by BWF, but to be a part of the organising committee, to bring some of the badminton knowledge that the organising committee was lacking. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect going into Japan. It was quite a tough working environment. I worked with some very, very good people. But I mean, language, I mean, if I think back language wise, I only speak English, and a lot of meetings there were conducted in Japanese, and a lot of the planning and bits and pieces that had been done was also in Japanese. So yeah, it was interesting, but very, very exciting. And I'm incredibly grateful to have had the opportunity to be a part of this event, but had been there for 6 weeks. Moved myself over there, and then the postponement happened. So as I go through the sort of different things that I learned, I suppose I'll come back to that postponement piece, because I'll just talk a little bit more broadly now about Tokyo itself. So my first one for you to think about when you're doing any form of event or tournament planning is to start with the why. So why are you running your event or your tournament? What is the vision? Because an event, I mean, it can't do everything. It can't cater for all different age groups. It can't cater for all different levels. It can't engage with all different parts of the community. So if you're running an event or a tournament, be very, very clear on what the goal is for that tournament. And then what impact are you hoping that the events will have? And that could be anything. It could be it could be a player development focus. It could be that all of the coaches are going to come together at the same time as the event and are going to have a workshop session. It could be an event that you're hoping will inspire and engage school age children, and that you're going to then connect the school competition so that they're then pulled into clubs. So what is it that you're hoping that the event or the tournament will achieve? And I think I've touched on this very slightly above, but who are you targeting, or what are you targeting as an outcome? Is it that, I don't know, you're going to have 100 school children participate, and of those 100, they're then going to go on to participate in as part of or join a club. So what are you hoping is going to be a byproduct of running that tournament? Because you can run a tournament, you can do the draw, you can do the schedule, you can get matches onto court, and the tournament will happen. There will be some that win and some that lose, but if you can articulate and think about what more you can do to add to that, and who you can bring on that journey to do a bit more, I think that's very, very important, and I think that's very, very powerful. And then the last one here, which can be tricky, but is really, really important. So is everybody that is involved within your tournament or event, are they clear on why you're doing it? Have you sold them on, we're running this tournament, this is why we're doing it? And then is everybody who's part of your tournament or event team, is everybody going in that direction? Is everybody able to articulate it? Because it becomes very, very powerful the more people that you have bought into that vision and that why piece. Okay, so off the back of this slide, I'm going to now just very briefly give you a bit of an overview of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games vision, because as I'm sure that many of you will be aware, when you bid to host an Olympic or Paralympic Games, I mean, there's a document that you have to present, and you're pitching to host this event, which will have many, many millions of eyes on it. And so Tokyo came up with the bid slogan of Discover Tomorrow. Within their bid documentation, they were talking about how sport has the power to change the world and future. I mean, as I said, I think probably everybody on this call believes that. So Tokyo used that as part of their bid document. So they recognised that when they hosted the games in 1964, there was a transformation around Japan, and their hope was that for Tokyo 2020 it would be seen as the most innovative in history, which that was what they based their bid upon. And then underneath that bid slogan, they came up with their 3 words and their 3 core concepts: achieving personal best, so an opportunity for the best in the world, obviously, to showcase themselves, and giving those athletes the best opportunity to showcase the best to the world. acceptance of one another, the fact that everybody is different. We're in a very diverse world, but everybody still is coming together for this celebration of sport. And then the connecting to tomorrow piece. So the legacy part. So what could be taken from the games into the future? So obviously Tokyo, Japan thought about this very hard when they were looking to pitch to host the games. Absolutely, I think still as with COVID, they obviously had to adapt quite a lot, but this was behind what it was that they were trying to do. And I mean, this slide just breaks down in a little bit more detail when they were doing their plan, some of the other areas that they were hoping to achieve. So I think what I would encourage would be you wouldn't need to do this in as much detail as you have to do for an Olympic and Paralympic Games, but at least start to think within your own event structures and in your own in whatever way it is that you run an event, when you're doing it and where you're doing it and how you're doing it. Just think, what is my why? Like, why am I doing this, and what is it that I'm hoping to achieve? And some can be fairly broad, and then you could narrow down. I mean, I quite liked that they had on their list that they wanted to, showcase Japanese culture and hospitality, as well as a part of that. I mean, unfortunately, they obviously were not able to do that as widely as they would have hoped, with no spectators in the venues. But I can tell you for definite that anybody that was there that was a volunteer, who was interacting with athletes, they really did. If there hadn't been volunteer, the athlete experience must have been very strange with no spectators, but the volunteers really, really went above and beyond to showcase a warm and friendly and helpful culture. And that was something that did come through throughout my experience, certainly at the Games. So in a nutshell, as I would just say, think about why you're hosting some of your events and the purpose behind them. If you're doing an event strategy for a particular area, don't just place an event somewhere without having a reason or a purpose behind it. Be able to articulate that. And so that is my lesson number 1 for you. Okay. So lesson number 2, and again, some of this is slightly before I started in Tokyo. So, but know who your partners are for your events. Who is out there that is local to wherever the event is being held, that can support you. You can do an event partner map. You can do a mapping activity. So if you know that you're hosting a tournament in a small city or a small town somewhere, who do you know that is near that small city that you could interact with, that you can engage with, that can have impact upon your event taking place. I go on a slight tangent with a small example around the Spanish Para Badminton International, where actually the event organizer has done a fantastic job of linking up with some very small businesses locally who now support the tournament year on year. And she's done that through the different connections that she's made. She's gone out, she's thought about it, and that's at a very, very local level. So if you are not already thinking about who you can partner with, that's not just local government, but that is other other organizations, then start to think about that. Relationships are super important. Actually, how are you going to build a relationship with somebody? I mean, it sounds silly, I suppose, but I don't know how many people would respond just to an email. So how are you going out to connect with different people? Who do other people know that you can then include? And how are you going to make that a strong working relationship? And then why would they buy into your event vision? So you've come up with your why and you've articulated your why. And then with your partners, like if you're articulating your why to them, what then is in it for them? What benefit are they going to get from supporting your event? And then, as always, what access to additional resources could they provide to you? So I think that this is absolutely key, is identifying who is going to partner with you for your different tournaments. Now, for Olympic, Paralympic Games, the way that this is structured is slightly different. And I suppose for Pan Am, it would be similar to how your regional games might work, in that you have or your Pan Am Games, but you have an organising committee that's formed, and then you have for an Olympics, you have the National Olympic Committee of the country. So for Tokyo, obviously it was Japan. The National Paralympic Committee of Japan also. Local government was involved, and then IOC membership was involved at a top level. In order to form that organising committee. And then many different organisations came on board to support and to help with making the games happen. I always think the strange or sad thing about an organising committee is, I mean, if it's formed and all these people come together, it starts quite small, it expands until it gets to games time, and then it quite quickly disbands afterwards. So the organising committee for Brisbane 2032 is already up and running. Not a huge number of staff, but it's it's there. So they're already starting, and they have been starting work on their games, which is 2032. So a little way off yet. I'm going to pause and take a sip of my drink. I'm talking a lot with no pause. Okay. The next one. So, my third lesson is about building your team, and then actually clarifying the responsibilities that the different team members have. In the Tokyo 2020 badminton team that are actually all in this picture, not all of them had started by the point that the games was postponed, but some of them, I think we were 5 people, were in the office, and I think I came in and almost I think I had to hit the ground running a little bit with trying to work out how the team worked, where I was going to fit in, and what I was going to need to support with, and how I could best do that. And I was coming with my own experience of running events. I knew that I was there to add the badminton knowledge to that team. And I was very keen to learn. I was very, very keen to actually help the team that were there already with different things that I knew, but also, as I said, to learn from them. So when you are, well, no, but what was not really there for me, at least when I started, was an understanding of who was responsible for the different areas within the tournament. So for you, and this might sound like it's very, very straightforward, but what are the key areas of your event or your tournament that you need to make sure are covered. That could be to do with catering, it could be to do with transport, it could be to do with media, it could be to do with match control, it could be to do with technical officials. As I say this, I'm very, very aware that for some of you on this call, it might be that there is just one person that is doing all of these different things. But if you can outline some of the key areas for your event or tournament, and you know that you're going to run it yearly, then I think you can start to and you then have identified your key stakeholders and your partners. How can you then start to look for people that are then going to want to come back and be involved and will support you year on year on year with those key areas? Actually, this is something that I would say that the All England did very, very well when I was at Badminton England. Over its history and a long period of time, there was a group basically of volunteers, we called them key workers, that had been identified as people that could support in the area of transport, in the area of team liaison, in the area of practice courts. And I mean, people are amazing. They did it on a voluntary basis. And I think gradually, yes, you can build, if you're right at the very start for an event, you can build a team for that, like for that one tournament. But how can you spot the people that are good and who have capacity to take on extra and will come back year on year because they have that like events and sport heart that means that they will continue to give. So if you know what those key areas are, then you can start to also identify people and build this team. Under each of those different key areas, you can outline some of the responsibilities that go alongside that. And again, this doesn't have to be, depending on the level of event, this doesn't have to be in a huge amount of detail, but it just is, it starts to be a few key points so that if somebody was coming into your team and you needed them to do something, then they would start to have an idea of a checklist, I suppose, that they could use to make sure that area ran smoothly. And again, this can and will be built over time, and will probably change year on year. Then I think it's important to think, how much crossover does each area have? So who's going to interact with who? If you're just one person, this is fairly straightforward. Because it is just you, but I would not encourage it to be just one person that does the event. I would say you should definitely have a team. Makes it much more fun with the team also. But how much crossover do they have? Who's going to interact with who, and who's going to need to communicate with who? And then the next one: how will you onboard new team members? So staff and volunteers. Sometimes in the life cycle of an event, you have people that start much earlier, and then you have the volunteers that just come in on the day. So how are you going to make sure that the volunteers that come in just on the day know what it is that they need to do? I think in a games or in an Olympic Paralympic Games, that's done very well because the volunteers are communicated to well in advance of the actual event taking place. I realise that is not possible for every single event, but the more you do and the more same faces coming back for different things, you can upskill, you can train them, and gradually they'll then upskill and train others also. And then the last one on this side, which I touched on a little bit earlier, is how are you going to leave a workforce legacy somewhere after the event or tournament? So sometimes what can happen is you find that one person who is very, very good at taking on work, taking on tasks, and then you use them for everything. And eventually, or I mean, if they have to stop or they have to give up or they can't do it anymore, then you don't have a workforce that is trained and upskilled, I would say. So when you're delivering an event or a tournament somewhere, how can you use that tournament to I don't know, upskill coaches, upskill technical officials, upskill people who are doing the match control role. People can learn from referees, all sorts of different things that you can do to leave a bit of a workforce legacy after the tournament takes place. The next slide, possibly a little bit not scary, but at an Olympic Games, they split all of those different they split all of the different, they're called functional areas, but they were split up into many different groups. And the Games has, by the time you get to actual delivery of the tournament, I mean, it's thousands of people working across all different areas, all of whom think that they are the most important functional area. But this is an over the top example of how you can split an event into different sections. I would not encourage you for a local tournament to go to this sort of level, but what this list does do is I mean, it also almost gives key points that you could think about that you want to make sure are covered off because all of these are important to make an event happen. And I mean, hopefully I've got this across from this section, but people are super important, and there are lots of different groups that you work with when you're building your team, and they all have different expectations, they all have different needs, all sorts of different things. So I've split up into I mean, there are many more groups, but some of the different people that you should think about and how you're going to build your team to best support those to make sure that the tournament happens effectively. I wanted to touch very briefly on the volunteer experience within Tokyo, because we did a lot of volunteer training before the event took place, before it started, to make sure that everybody was ready. But the volunteers really did make the event and the experience for the athletes, I hope, more positive. But we then also as staff tried to make sure that the volunteers had a good volunteer experience. So I would encourage you, and probably many of you will do this already, but how will you ensure that your volunteers have a good event experience? I mean, we did some games around the venue when we had the opportunity to. There were mini prizes. I mean, the volunteers made things for the athletes. Pin swapping is a big thing. But people really do go above and beyond. So I think I just wanted to highlight within this section and the team building piece that how you treat your volunteers is really important. I mean, hopefully that goes without saying, but they will then be the ones that will come back year on year. They will tell other people. They will invite others to be involved in the sport also. And if they have a good experience, then they're going to go and tell people that they had a good experience. If they don't have a good experience, I mean, likewise, they're just not going to come back, and they're giving up their time freely. So I think that's not to be underestimated. And Tokyo, I mean, they had planned to do a session in the venue for spectators when there were supposed to be spectators. That was a dance cam and they couldn't do it for various, well, they couldn't do it because there were no spectators. But what we ended up doing actually for the volunteers in the morning was we would put on some music and we would do a big volunteer dance off. I think that there's some footage. I think there's some footage somewhere of me and Watanabe-san, who was the Japanese technical operations manager, teaching a whole load of volunteers how to do the Macarena. And just those very small different elements, they add value to the volunteer experience. So I just wanted to touch on that as well as part of Tokyo. Okay, so number 4, I've just realised how long I've been talking for, but number 4, communication is key. It's very, very important. So when you are communicating to other people about your event or internally, you need to think about who needs to know. So if you have information that needs to be sent out, disseminated, who needs to know it? It is better, in my opinion, it is better to over communicate so that people are included rather than under communicate. How are you going to communicate? There are so many methods of communication now. You could have a radio, you could have Teams, you could have WhatsApp, you can have a phone call. I mean, it's communication is not always as streamlined as it could be, because people can get you on multiple different devices, and then you have to check your email, you check your Teams, you check your WhatsApp, and you have your radio. If you're somebody, you might have 2 radios, and it can become quite overwhelming. So keeping communication very clear is important. I would recommend that you do regular check-ins with your team. I think that this is important. They don't need to be long. It could just be 10 minutes catching up. How are you doing? What problems have you got? What needs to be solved? And then as an outcome of those meetings, be very, very clear on what the action points are that need to be taken forward, so that everybody knows that. I've added transparency and honesty here. One of the most challenging things about Tokyo for me was that sometimes when I would ask something, or if something was possible, I would be told yes, but actually the answer really was no. And I think that actually, if there is something that is going to be a problem or a barrier or get in the way of the event happening, then I think it's important to say it, because then you can solve that problem. So actually for me, the transparency and honesty piece is really, really, really important. And then the last one there is a question, and that is, are you making sure that everybody's voice is heard? So sometimes within an event team, you have people that talk a lot, and you have people that are better at listening. And sometimes the people that are better at listening, or their preference is to listen, their voices then get lost. And often they may have seen something, they may have thought something that somebody else may not have done. So I would encourage that you think about, did everybody have the opportunity to speak, to say something that was relevant to what was going on? And I will highlight again that for me in Tokyo, language was a real barrier. A lot of meetings were, all meetings pretty much were in Japanese until we got to games time and international staff then joined. But this was hard. Google Translate was my friend for emails also. So just, I guess, think about, if you're communicating and it's across multiple languages, like how are you making sure that everybody has then understood? So communication is key. Okay, so the next bit actually is all about the planning piece. And so, I mean, the games were, this is a picture of we had countdown clocks in the foyer area. And yeah, when the games was postponed, they were turned off, they were switched off, and there were these two signs that were put across them. It was very sad, actually, very strange, very sad. But yeah, but obviously before this, there was a whole load of planning that had taken place. So for me, planning is really important, and I recognize and know that not everybody is a super detailed planner. But why would you plan? I could ask that question. But for me, the reason that you plan is that it demonstrates that you have thought something through in detail, rather than just turning up and it happening. And there is nothing wrong with doing a plan, getting onto venue and realizing that that plan definitely is not going to work. But for an Olympic and Paralympic Games, there are so many planning documents that are completed, and they are completed in a huge amount of detail. So as I said, you would not need all of these different plans, but it's worth breaking down the different areas that you might need to have a plan for, or at least have thought through. So for us, the sport operations plan covered everything that was sport related at quite a high level. We had little mini operations plans. This could have been to do with technical officials. It could have been to do with athlete walk-on. It could have been with how were we going to distribute towels and ice? What were we going to do if not all of the ice was used and it was melting somewhere? How were we going to get rid of it? Yes, we did go into that amount of detail, including, towels as well, number of towels per day, towel deliveries. There were guides for technical officials. There was a plan for medal ceremonies, like how that was going to be done, where people were going to walk in, how dignitaries were going to be involved, when national anthems would be played, when we would raise the flags, etc., etc. DCAS is a daily competition and activity schedule, and this is a minute by minute, second by second breakdown of everything that happens related to competition. Actually, for badminton, it's a crazy document because there's one for each day, and it really does go into a lot of detail. But broadcast also then need that as well, so they know what's going on. Your field of play plan. If you're not doing a field of play plan and thinking it through with your courts, with any A boards, with walk-ons, walk-offs, with technical officials tables, with chairs, I would highly, highly encourage you to do this. And then athlete flows. I really, really, this one for me, if you're going to do any plan, if you're going to do any plan, I would say what your field of play is going to look like, and the people that you're going to need on the field of play, and routes and everything. Really, really important. And then there was also a venue level plan, and that covered off everything else. So a lot of planning had already gone into the games by the time I got there in February 2020. And then the games was postponed. I mean, I remember, probably a lot of people remember this news story coming through, but due to COVID, the games was postponed to 2021. So I actually stayed in Tokyo for an extra year during COVID, which was quite an experience. So my next slide is that all of those plans that we had done already, or that were in a very, very good shape and very, very good place, due to COVID-19, they were not scrapped, but we were back to the drawing board. We were scuppered by COVID-19. So my lesson from this is, yes, plan, but I'm calling it freedom within a framework. So you have your framework of a plan, but know that there is some freedom within that. I think I've articulated why I believe that you should plan. So taking through having a thought process behind why you would do something and documenting it, and then being able to share it with somebody else. And I've said, so how will you adapt if something doesn't go to plan? And if you have done events, you will know that this happens. You will know that this happens all the time. So COVID was one for us in Tokyo. You can see on the screen there, I have a picture of a snake. And yes, that snake did appear in the venue during, I think it was the Paralympic Games. It didn't make it onto courts. It did not pick up a racket and play, but there was a snake in the venue. There was no plan for if there was a snake in the venue. So there was pigeons, yes, snake, no. So if something doesn't go to plan, what are you going to do about it? We had a huge issue with the lights in Tokyo. We'd actually hoped to bring BWF over to Tokyo earlier to do a light test, but we weren't able to do this. And we were very, very worried because all of our venue builds was around the lights being ready by a particular date. And once courts had gone down, if we needed to adjust the lights, then we were bringing in equipment that would have to go on the wooden floor, and there was huge knock-on impact for if it didn't work, if the lights were not okay. But I would encourage that if there is a problem at an event, some people are very good at going, there is a problem, it is terrible, how are we, we're never going to solve this problem. But I would encourage that you be solution focused. Actually, yes, there's a problem. How are we going to fix it? How will we make sure it doesn't happen again? And that is then teamwork. Attention to detail is really, really important. So when you're doing your planning, if you take a field of play plan and you're then sharing that with somebody else, actually the detail in the plan is important because it helps other people then know what is going on and what is happening with their plan. So better to be more detailed rather than less. And then the last two, I think for me, an event is for everybody, but it's for the players. So for Olympic Games and Paralympic Games, actually in the mindset of the sport team, we wanted to create the best environment for the players, so that they could compete to the best of their ability without distraction. And their journey and their experience would be smooth because they trained for such a long time to get to the games. It was postponed. For the Paralympic athletes, it was the first time that they were competing at a Paralympic Games, so a completely new experience for them. And I will add with that planning, and maybe it goes without saying, but Tokyo, with para badminton being included for the first time, we wanted to make sure that the experience that those para athletes had was on par with, quite rightly, the badminton athletes. And I think for many of them, I remember how nervous they were before they walked onto courts because they hadn't been in a venue with such a good setup. Those that have done Tokyo and Paris now, Paris was incredible with the spectators in also. But you're planning to give those that are competing in your tournaments the best opportunity to compete to the best of their ability. And similarly then for stakeholders that are also involved in that. Okay. The number 6 Lesson number 6, a bit of a theme, I think, throughout, because I've mentioned both of these words before, and I've said that people are important before. You can't do everything on an event. You can try, but the event will be better with a good group of people. It really is the people that make the events. And the experience for everybody. This obviously has a strong link to communication. But I won't talk too much more about this one. I think it goes without saying, and probably I've covered a lot of it off within previous parts of the presentation. I have 2 more lessons to go. So number 7, evaluating your event and feeding back. Many people, and I've been part of events like it also, but many people don't do this. And after a games, there's a piece of work, it's called a transfer of knowledge. And we document basically how the event went and anything that we've learned to pass over and on to the next event organisers. And so I would encourage you very quickly with the team, depending upon the level and scope of events. But did you meet what you set out to do? Did you meet your why? And if you didn't, are you able to articulate why you didn't? I would strongly suggest that you gather feedback from multiple stakeholders. So from your coaches, from your players, from people that came to watch, from parents, from technical officials, from the local shop that sponsored you. Gather feedback, because that will then help you to identify what your strengths were for the event and then any areas that you can improve. And then share what you learned with other people. Actually, within this call, you've got a great network within Pan Am. So how are you sharing what you've learned with other people? Like I said, with the transfer of knowledge, with that sharing of evaluation, that becomes a legacy piece of work for future event planning, and it becomes a knowledge base for event planners. So if you've never run an event before and you want to have a go at it, yes, a good way to learn is by doing, but what can others then teach and mentor you from their own evaluation and feedback? I think that's really, really important. And also with your evaluation and feedback, it demonstrates your value to other stakeholders, which means that you could then use that in the future. So if there's something that people have said that you did really, really well, how are you sharing that more widely so that then people want to connect with you in the future? So evaluating and feeding back is, incredibly important, and often something that just you finish the event, you're very tired. You don't want to think about the event anymore, but take a day, take 2 days, event is finished, and then do a feedback session. I think that's really, really important. I like my next slide. My final bit before I wrap up, but oh my goodness, should you enjoy the event that you work on, and you should celebrate the success that comes from all of the hard work that it takes to pull something off. Be that a tournament that lasts an afternoon or a day, it is still a phenomenal piece of work. Whether it be a tournament that's a whole weekend, a week, a team tournament, an individual tournament, you should enjoy it, and you should celebrate. That success. Events are hard. I think I mentioned earlier I did a very brief stint in football, women's football, and I was talking to them about scheduling, and I was explaining. Football easy. you're 90 minutes, unless you're going to extra time, but 90 minutes, you know when you're starting, you know vaguely when you're finishing. It's all very, very controlled. One field of play. Maybe unless you're doing a junior football tournament and there's multiple fields of play going on at once. At badminton, we have multiple fields of play. We have no idea, despite however many times parents may ask at a junior event, we have no idea if like start time and end time of a match. So events, they're hard. They're brilliant, but I completely appreciate that they're hard and they're very, very long hours, and people could be changing courts, at crazy hours in the night. So enjoy and celebrate. I do think that events strengthen relationships within teams. If you're wanting to build a team, I think a good way to do it is through getting them to run an event, because you soon learn what different people are like. And you soon learn how you're going to fit in to a team environment. So I think that's very, very important. And then actually by celebrating that success, it is a motivation and confidence boost for others and for those that are involved in it. They feel like they want to be involved again, and they go into other areas of their life, if they're a volunteer perhaps, with more confidence. So that is my lesson number 8. Final considerations, some of which I've touched on. One is budget. Actually, I mean, for Tokyo 2020, just being in the sport team, I didn't have so much to do with budget, although it was quite strict for Tokyo. But obviously, if you're running your events, you need to have a budget. You need to track it. You need to know what you're spending. You need to know what income you're getting. So I think you will probably all know that. And then hopefully there's been a bit of a common theme throughout this presentation, that, I know events are for, they're for the fans as well, but ultimately they're for the athlete. And through events at whatever level, what we are doing is giving every child the chance to play badminton for life, which is what BWF is then aiming to do. And you are playing a very, very key, very, very important part in that by any event that you are running, for whatever level of player. It's incredibly important. And I think I've touched on this probably multiple times, but the power of a tournament to create partnerships and legacy. I mean, you could put the eye in this triangle here. I've put events in the middle, but everything is connected here. The development, education, mark-ups, all sorts of different things that you can do off the back of and around events. So that's just a final point from me. But there is power in hosting events and tournaments. So finally, just to wrap up, I think I've done all right with time. Maybe I've gone over a little bit, but what next? So what do I hope that you will go away and ask yourself following this presentation? So if you're running events, do you know why? Are you making the most out of your partnerships to add value to the event? Who are your key people? How are you identifying new talent and doing what you can to upskill a workforce through mentoring? Could you plan better? How can you make your team communication stronger? Are you evaluating, and what are you doing with that evaluation? And then when it gets to the end of an event, are you saying thank you? And are you saying well done? So I think that's really important. Unfortunately, I've recorded this, so my next slide says, do you have any questions for me? I am I am very, very happy that after this session, if you do have something that you wanted to ask, that you wanted to talk through, that you wanted to connect on, the Pan Am team have my email address. I mean, you have my email address anyway through BWF, but I'm more than happy to answer questions, to get on a call if there's anything else that you wanted to ask or just to talk through. I'm very, very happy to do that. And there you go. That's me. That's me saying thank you. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that you found that useful. I hope that you learned something. And good luck with all of your events that hopefully you'll now run for different levels and in different places. I will be, for those of you who may be at the AGM in Jarman, I will be there also, so feel free to come and say hello. But thank you very much for having me, and I hope that this was useful.
Wow, what an educational presentation. We thank Fern for sharing such an insightful presentation with us. It has been a privilege having her on the program and to learn more about her experience in managing and organizing top-level badminton competitions. Without a doubt, her experience brings great value to the badminton community. We hope to have her again with us in the future. Before closing today's webinar, we would like to greet all of our audience who joined us today. First, all of those who sent their photographs into the coaching family. Thank you. And we have Juan Nolasco from Honduras. We'd like to thank our audience, especially Mario from Bolivia, Norberto from Argentina, Raul, Jose, Joanna from Colombia, Randy from Costa Rica, Andres and Jose from El Salvador, Juan from Honduras, Juan, Mario from Guatemala, Amanda from Jamaica, Jorge from Mexico, Olga from Panama, Guillermo, Haiti, Araceli and Leon from Peru, Serena from Venezuela, and Raha from Mauritius. On behalf of Badminton Pan Am,